business at Salesforce back in times. Aaron, you wrote a book called Predictable Revenue, which many salespeople and like go-to-market leaders grew up with in the 2010s, and like still people execute successfully today. Then wrote From Impossible to Inevitable. How can you make predictability even like more predictable in a way? And now people are joking like, Aaron, you should write a book in 2025 called Unpredictable Revenue, because that's
Yeah.
what's happening. You're now working on something called Ghost Revenue, that we really need to uncover the layers which are preventing people from executing as a world-class team. Like there's layer one of external tensions on like the world economy has been more stable, let's put it mildly, after like a pandemic, a close world war, and so on. There's internal frictions around psychological and emotional battles people don't voice. So fear of missing out became like fear of messing up. And there's execution gaps of what just breaks down in daily reality behind all the shiny tools and the next tactics. So I could speak a lot more. Just like one thing, you tremendously inspired me. Like since I think 2009, when I learned about Salesforce first and so on. Like the first book, like my first CEO gave, like, that I would build up go to market, was like Read Predictable Revenue, executing it. It was quite successful. What got us here will not work out anymore that much, because a lot of people
Bam.
read your book. And if everybody read the book, everybody's having the same tactics but executes less well in 2025, which we'll speak about. It works less. So it's a bit of a race to the bottom. If everybody writes, quick question: are you
Yep.
free next Tuesday or Wednesday 9 a.m.?
Yep. Yep. Well, like you said, so whether the book, this book is called Unpredictable Revenue or Ghost Revenue or some other, it's just a working title. But I think, like you said, what got us here isn't going to get us to the next step. And a lot of executives, I put up a post on LinkedIn probably about a year ago now. But the lead sentence was from, VP of sales had used this phrase like, that just like describes it so well. He said, I'm a little bit terrified at how fast things are changing, and it was just like saying, hey, the playbooks that used to work, things are, results have been declining, at least in, response and conversion rates for like marketing campaigns, SDR campaigns, uh, sales cycles were kind of extending and churn was up. And there's a lot of the growth metrics were going in the wrong direction for most companies. Obviously, there's some companies who are growing like crazy because of AI, but there's a lot of companies, if you've been around for more than a couple of years, just struggling because things are changing and like trying a lot of the classic tactics, whether it's in again marketing, sales, even in management, right? Because there's this other layer. And so when you're in this space of things aren't going the way I want, I'm trying all the stuff that used to work, but it's not working, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think
And
one thing that we're observing is, if everybody's running one direction and you can run another direction that's hard, but that's like a path less traveled, it still works tremendously well. So people ask
yeah,
like, is cold calling still working? Is physical events still working? Is sending a book physically still working? Like, yeah, actually, because there's fewer people picking up the phone, like everybody's worrying about the next sequence and how to AI write their follow through email. If you
yep,
do like a 5 minute Loom video follow through, that's 100% you, 100% Aaron. People appreciate it more than before. Like, how do
yeah,
you see that scarcity of like real human involvement evolving as well in terms of AI?
yeah. Yes. However, it's a bit trickier than that because if you just knew, okay, here's like 10 paths and seven are kind of the obvious ones where it's not working, and there's three that are like really hard, but we can, if we just do them, they'll work. Then people could do those hard things and just make it work. But since sometimes you're not sure what the kind of that zig, if everyone's zigging, you're not sure what the zag looks like.
Yeah.
And even if you know what the zag looks like, you're like not sure how to make it work. So again, I think what we're doing with this next book is tying some of the classic principles that have worked for a decade, well, 2 decades, and are going to work for 2 more decades. And I'll go through those. Sort of like, what are the steps you take? But the thing that I think is more important right now, as the world gets busier, more mentally, emotionally overwhelming, confusing, and change is going to continue to speed up. I don't think the world's going to stabilize. I think it's just is the way it is now. I think because as technology connects everybody, it's kind of like my premise around the more connected we get, the butterfly effect happens faster, right? So a
Yeah.
ripple, whether it's a war, a political election, an invention, a technology, just everything just ricochets around the world faster and faster. So I only think that there's going to be more change and more disruption. So it's like, okay, um, where is it going? So that there's these layers around what it's like it's harder than ever for people to kind of pierce the illusion around what they think they should be doing,
Yeah,
which usually looks like this list of 100 things they think they should be doing. All right. If you're in marketing, I mean, like, oh, I need to be doing SEO and then GEO and plus doing webinars, plus doing posting and content and like, oh my God. Or in any function, there's like 100 things that all would be good advice and good ideas. Be like, I like, what do I do? And
I
so
feel
they
a
end up,
lot of it is also not good advice, and it's just like a lot of noise around LinkedIn and blogs and so on. So if you compare it to, let's say, weight training, like strength training and bodybuilding, people grew up in the 70s, 80s, and they just did squats, deadlifts, bench, Yates row, and military press, and they've been fine. And they became Arnold Schwarzenegger with some added substances, maybe, but they became reasonably good at doing 4 or 5 basic movements. And then people came and invented machines and fancy trainings and supplements and Instagram channels and so on. And
yeah,
it
you need
didn't
to do
become
this thing,
much
you know.
better. It didn't become much better with adding complexity. And I think like some things are just people losing the thread a bit on like what they're actually trying to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if it's, and I don't have like exact solution yet. This is the book's underway, but the idea is helping people. How do you kind of recenter on like what's your exact situation now? And if you
Yeah.
strip away all the shoulds, I should do this, I should do that, I should work harder, I should take breaks, I should be, how do you get down? I'm by the way, I'm sure there's some 2,000-year-old Buddhist philosophy which would probably like tell you to do this, but how do you get down to the exact situation that you are right now to kind of strip away pierce that illusion or remove all the shoulds and be like, okay, what is the actual best step for me to do right now with my business, with my team, with my person that's actually going to move things forward?
To which extent do you see that not happening due to a fear of conflict and insecurity and
Oh my God.
overanalysis in teams where there's a certain chain of screaming, like venture capitalist says, you need to have an AI SDR, multi-channel, SEO
Yeah.
optimized, everything.
Yep.
And then the CEO basically tells that to the revenue leader, to chief revenue officer, VP sales, VP marketing, is like, you need to have 27 tools to write an email, apparently. So please purchase them and use them every day. And then all the SDRs who got basically into create pipeline, like to basically convert market interest into demand, into revenue, they got shouted at to use 27 tools and like write 2,000 people with while completely losing the thread that all they're supposed to do is building awareness and trust and education to help people take an informed decision to solve the problem by buying a solution or not.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. There's, I do a little bit of, I'm on a couple boards. I don't do a lot of coaching or consulting. Because I've kind of changed my own career. I take my own advice. I'm just really focused on books. I don't even create that much content because again, I just can't do that many things. If like between, we have 10 kids and my wife has a business and helping her with that. But like there's an example, a company and the CEO, probably has a bit worse than most. The FOMO and the FOFU, right? Fear of missing out, and the FOFU, fear of fucking up.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay. And his team, he has a lean team. And so it's like, okay, we need to have like LinkedIn going. We need outbound going. And we need to, I've got this, like, he's got this community. There's way too much, right? Because he's so terrified of growth. Um, it's not growing as fast as he wants. And of other companies coming in, it's like the thing is, and he doesn't even have capacity to do, let's say he's got like 7 go to market things.
Yeah.
He has the capacity to do maybe like 1, maybe 2.
And the focus and energy. It's
And
not
so
just time, right?
and all the programs just kind of like they don't perform very well or nearly as well as they could because again, each one, it's like, okay, you're trying to get from San Francisco to Los Angeles. So I'm terrified. I'm not going to make it. So I'm going to drive 7 cars and I'm going to put a half a tank of gas in each car because that way one of them's going to make it.
Yeah.
And
Dilution. Essentially, it's
yeah.
dilution, right?
Yeah, so that dilution of energy, attention, focus, and so that's one example. But that happens both between again, there's the world and social media and all the shoulds and coulds that like that exacerbates it. And then within teams, you get now is there's more, frustration and conflict than there used to be. Right, I'm old enough, right? So I'm 53. I worked. So back when I was, in the when did I work? Like 90s, yeah. So 90s for the most part, even 2000s. There's a much more homogenous work culture, right? Because generally things didn't change that fast. I mean, you had the older, let's say at that point, 40s or 50s people that were always a bit crustier, and the younger
Hmm.
people who were a bit more, optimistic. And but the gap between expectations and okay, people are working 9 to 5 or whatever or longer, and people are generally all in the office. And there were some exceptions with telecommuting, but now when you have because of social media and just content, right? The gap between work styles and expectations between like a 45-year-old and a 25-year-old is like it's huge. It's bigger than ever.
I
And
I
there's
must,
remote in
out of
office.
own experience, disagree
There's
on
just
the
very so
Gen
much
Z
tension.
on the
And
Gen Z run to a certain extent, because like a third of my team is below 25. Like two of them
yep.
had their own agencies for years. Some of the most productive and like hardworking people I know. Like without saying like I work weekends and nights just because of like consulting hustle, and it's cool to send emails. I mean, like they're not right, like fixed partners, kids, and so on. But it's not a 25 versus 45-year-old. What Jason Lemkin refers to as the jaded, the broken, and the done CXOs that
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to see customers anymore. It's much more people don't know what they should do. Like what you mentioned as like people love the idea, but they forget the job, I think is how you frame it.
Yeah.
So they see so much what is available to do, and they forgot to do. It's like they go into a huge gym called LinkedIn, Instagram, tactics, newsletters, and they see 100 strength machines, but they don't know which one to use and why. So they jump from machine to machine versus just executing for like 2 3 years consistently and honing their craft.
Yeah. I should do this one, this one, this one. I gotta do all the
And
check all
all
the
the
boxes.
best like elite athletes, musicians, chefs, entrepreneurs I know, they've become like top 0.1% in very few things over this amount of time, like three to
Yeah.
ten years.
Well, like you said, if you just do the equivalent of like your bench press, squat, row, maybe like uh, pull ups. I mean, what are your four core, whatever your four core ones. Now, the trick is, I think in this world, the idea of like proven playbooks that you could
Yeah.
just kind of implement is going to be less and less likely to work. And this, I think, is going to be true. I mean, look at like food and exercise. There's so many good. Well, let's assume there's actually, of course, there's people who are just making things up, but there's like too much good advice,
Yeah.
right? Should you be carnivore, vegan, flexitarian? Like, there's not one right answer for people. The trick is like, what's the answer for you? And people we're used to, so we grow up being told what to do for the most part. And, do this, you get the good grades, you do this, get a job and so on, that's fine. At some point, even if we didn't have that, there's still this learning of how do you start to develop your own life and what works for you and whether it's the
Yeah.
eating system, exercise system, work. And it's confusing, it's uncertain, it takes way longer than you think it should, right? Because everyone online is like, oh, in 30 days, 90 days, in 7 days, in 3 hours, you can
Yeah.
solve this thing. And it can be years for you to sort out that area of your life. Could be work. I mean, I said, I think it was the last, I was around 50, little older when, going back to my version of the squats and deadlift and bench was, basically books, speaking, and partnering, right? And so not content, right? Because I don't, it's like books. And so that's kind of like that could change, but like that's my current, version. And that was probably 2 or 3 years of really difficult reinvention,
Yeah.
kind of like a version of a midlife career crisis and the uncertainty because no one likes to not know. Like it's so painful these days for people
Yeah.
to not know.
I think it's
Um,
not even these days. Like, I mean, there's a scientific studies, right, where the people they told people like, Aaron, you can have an electric shock that's going to hurt you right now, and you're going to be certain it's going to be now. I can tell you like 3 2 1 shock, or you can have a shock potentially that's half as strong in any given time within the next 10 minutes. I mean, it's like shock me now. Like even if it's twice
yeah,
as
might
hard
as
for
well get it over
100%
with. Yeah,
certainty, let's get it over with. How do
yeah.
you see this pressure for constant reinvention and also chasing vanity metrics, often like by boards or by venture capital or by like the outside world of, they don't really know what moves the needle sometimes.
Yeah.
Like our Vino Koshler put it, like 90% of VCs add no value and
Yeah.
70% add negative value of pressure that is now within months to quarters in terms of AI. Like, hey, you should supposed to iterate within days and weeks,
Yeah.
versus where people have probably at Salesforce, Mark Benioff has given you a year to make it work at least. It's like, Aaron, okay, like I'll give you a shot. Like, let's see if this works within a year. While now people get a month.
Yeah. Or, even back at Salesforce, I had like 3 months, which seems like a long time to kind of make that new program
It's
work.
still Mark Benioff through that. Met him once.
Um, I think so. To me, I think a lot of what is going to take to be successful at anything in whether it's in life, and it's always been the case, but just more so now in the corporate world in making money is, it's, I don't have a good phrase for it, but it's really just like learning how to, walk your path despite
Mm-hmm.
everyone else's opinions, right? So if you're a CEO, now, okay, look, if you're a person, you have to do this within relationships, right? Because you're in a relationship, and if you get married, and anyone who's been married or had a long-term relationship will understand this. You just have all this other kind of like pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge for you to have to learn how to stand up for yourself, to know what you need and how to, what you as a person need to do for yourself to make yourself successful, which then you can help make the relationship successful. Like if you're focused on making your partner successful at the expense of you, it will not work. So
Yeah.
if you're a CEO of a company, you have investors, and if your focus is making your investors happy in the short term by doing what they want, you will not be as successful as you kind of practice like, here's what I know, because no one else is in the business in the same situation as you
Yeah.
are as the CEO. This could be true of a executive, right? But for CEO, like, the hopefully the customers the best. And if you're not talking to them, that's a separate problem, right? You kind of know the team, the investors. You're in this place where as you learn, because everyone does, to kind of stand up for what the business needs and what you need, and to know, okay, so are my investors telling me I need to do this with AI SDRs or
Yeah.
marketing or whatever it is? You're like, is that a no, that's stupid, or that's great, but I just don't have the capacity, or yeah, we need to do that. Like, you just need to know how to sift through that, like the noise. It's just like social media, right? Like you said, all the 100 exercises, and if your investors or executives like, we need all these 20 exercises, and you just need to know how to stay the course, which is like what feels right. It's really, to me, intuition or hunch based for the most part.
It is,
Even
and the cure comes with potential severe side effects, right? Of like executed conviction and confidence to voice what you feel is best for the business. And
it-
this was like during my time with the World Economic Forum, right? Like I was on a phone call, and then the CAO of the World Economic Forums are like, I think this is the best way to move to implement quote to cash on Salesforce. And I just said, like, I really don't think so. And people looked around and was like, whoa, why do you say that? Well, because I'm the project co-lead with Thiago here, and he agrees with me. And then the program lead took me aside. I was like, man, I respect that you voiced your confidence and conviction what's best for the client. It will either get you lunch with the CAO or get you fired off the project. And I was like, why should it get me fired? Like, I just voiced my honest functional conviction of what's best. Like, well, because some executives don't like to be get rejection, right? So
exactly.
what's your take on what you mentioned, like the fear of conflict and a nice culture, like in a divorce lawyer's terms, divorce is the result of the battles you did not fight, but the relationship might end earlier before marriage.
I mean, this is, I think emotional intelligence, emotional smarts is far more important, or at least, it depends on the situation, than IQ, right? It's growing up versus how well you did in school and how kind of smart you are used to be, kind of, or like society says, how smart are you? But really, it's about emotional smarts. Like, how do you deal with uncertainty?
Yeah.
With, do you have empathy? How do you deal with, again, you have a conviction? Do you say something right now or not? Because there are times when might be right, but just knowing the situation, maybe you should stay quiet in public, but then talk to someone privately. Like, how do you
Yeah.
navigate these difficult situations where it's not clear, and it's not about your IQ? and ChatGPT can't tell you. It's like that emotional smarts. So I think that's something that, again, that's kind of this, how do you navigate when, how, whether you have intuition or hunches or beliefs that you can't justify, because it's hard when you believe something's right and everyone else is telling you you're wrong or you're going to fail or it's not working, right? Because
It
if
is
it
also
takes
it's
more
hard if it's not clear, right? So when we do anything on pipeline generation, we typically ask who's responsible, who's accountable for weighted sales pipeline, marketing or sales? People are like, well, both a bit, and it depends on inbound and outbound, and like the sales rep should do a bit, and it would also be great if the SDRs do marketing collateral, and marketing should also go to events, and in the end, it's the CEO. In who's responsible for referrals and testimonial capturing? Like marketing, well, we never talk to people, so like it should be sales or customer success. Sales, like we only want to make money, so like our job is to get the signature. And customer success, we're too nice to ask for anything, so it should be somebody else.
Yep.
And then referrals and testimonials is just not happening. So this is even less about emotional security and emotional intelligence. I think it's about clarity, and like the fish stinks from from the top of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
CEO or the chief revenue officer. Like marketing owns pipeline, sales owns revenue, customer success owns net revenue retention, or like however you structure, but it needs to be clear which person is accountable. Where
Yeah.
do you
Well, and
see
also it
the
might be
challenge
clear
why
for,
people don't do that?
it might be, well, it might be clear today, but again, it might need to change in 3 months. So it's like, kind of like your ideal customer profile. It used to be you could do an ideal customer profile and that would last for a year or two. And now it might, you need to recheck it every 3 or 6 months.
The challenge is like, I mean, if the ICP change, that's okay, right? Like, I mean, you update your target accounts in HubSpot and Salesforce, and you go to different events, and you can do that with incentives around which key performance indicators to track and which jobs to be done. Like you hire people who are not suitable for the job if that changes, and you cannot change people that much, like on commitment and and capacity.
Yep.
And if you create, for example, annual quotas for sales, like how much new business, and then suddenly says like, oh, you're also responsible for expansion in existing customers, that just doesn't tie up because there's 6 to 12 month cycle and changing in a quarter. How do you see that being helped in the age of AI, or being really unhelpful because change is so happening so quickly? Because
Yeah, I
it's a
think
very
it's,
human change on long axis in years, which sometimes is influenced by months.
yeah, no, it's hard because, it's just being more adaptable and agile with the business because, you know, um, you might be used to having some comp structure that was been working. Let's say your company's big enough to actually where kind of comp plans work. You've got some predictability, but with markets changing frequently, right? It can be something where within 6 months, the response rates, win rates, sales cycles could be changing,
Yeah.
usually for the worse, potentially for the better if you get something new. And it's like, okay, is that in that case, this is one of those situations, do you keep the comp plans the way they are, even though it's really, it's the
Mm,
market changing and say like, oh, salespeople, you need to, like there's not only so much they can do. And there is a lot they can do, but it's a joint effort. Or do you go back and change the comp plans? And it's, yeah, it's like it's just work. It's extra work. Do we go back and change this or not? And so this is where the teams looking at, it's like this constantly changing world that's just changing faster. So between the people we have and the comp plans and the metrics and the thing and then this, that's just, and you can't do it all. Right. And that's
you
the whole,
cannot
like
do it
going
all,
back.
and you lose trust if you change things too quickly, because it can appear, I guess, low integrity because you don't
Mm,
stand by your word. If you, so
no,
this is the annual comp plan, and then you change it mid-year, and people optimize
no,
their pipeline for something that's, I just see that happening a lot, where people hire sales reps, for example, and then tell them, well, you should also create your own pipeline. It's like, that was not part of the employment agreement. This is
exactly.
not
So it
why
wasn't
I
about
left
changing.
my old job. This is not why I went from New York to San Francisco. I came here, you told me there will be pipeline. I just need to jump on calls, tell people how nice the product is. Now the product is not working as you told me. The pipeline is not there as you told me. And the executive might say like, well, I thought it would work out. It doesn't. What do we do now?
Yeah. So that wasn't about changing too quickly. It's changing without, one, it's more like one-sided arbitrary changes. Because again, if you're, talk to them, it's like, hey, we need, and you explain, here's, we need to change things, whether it's, or in that case, again, it's a pretty big miss on expectations. So it's not how fast you change them, it's how you change them. That
Yeah.
people don't like surprises.
Yeah.
I mean, like a great. you like there once in a while there's a great surprise, like a big deal comes in, but generally people don't like surprises because mostly they're unhappy surprises in the workplace.
Yeah, very
So
rarely they
just
enter the room and the CEO comes in and says, suddenly we give you like double the salary and
right,
your job is
exactly.
less
Like,
hard
oh,
and you can take Thursday, Friday off because it's going so well in 2025.
yeah. Now, I mean, there's the very first book I wrote was kind of a practice book, but it was called CEO Flow. Really more about like transparency and helping your
Hmm.
ideas help your employees work like mini CEOs. But really, the phrase, if there's like one phrase that could sum up the book, it would be no surprises.
Yeah. How do you do that where you as a company get constant surprises? I mean, like Switzerland right now, we have apparently like 39% tariffs from Mr. Trump, which was not in, it was 15% until a month ago.
Yeah.
And then you go to your company and basically like, hey, by the way, like our exports just get taxed like 2.5 times as heavy. And people's like, how are we going to make it work? Like, I don't know. And I don't know is uncertainty, which people don't like. I mean, like, how do you cope on a revenue level in the sense like what you mentioned, like on feedback that's either too vague or too late, like when you just don't know, like what Jeff Bezos from Amazon mentions, like decisions on uncertainty is hard because you don't know. Like, are there certain frameworks you see working better
Or,
or
I
worse?
prefer the phrase, I prefer the phrase, "Hey, Belly, you can come in here." This is everyone's waking up here. We'll figure it out, rather than don't know. It's definitely some people in the family do not like that phrase because they want some sort of certainty or clarity, like what's next. And but if you don't have that, the other thing you can have is a confidence that yeah, we'll figure it out. Or figure it out together.
Yeah,
Because you just can't know, like you can't know the future. You can have a plan. The plan may or may not mean anything. The plan, plans sometimes are helpful to kind of set direction, but they don't. Just having a plan doesn't mean it's going to happen. So they can, and I don't know. Plans don't really work for me, other than they're more like intentional goals. Because anytime in the past I make some sort of plan, stuff changes, and the plan just it's I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, but it's like all the trying to get a plan just it was useful past the time I made it.
yeah. And how do you do that in terms
Think a
of
plan even early. Yeah. So, anyways, I wrote the book Predictable Revenue. I'm generally skeptical of plans. Uh, and I'm seeing these companies. If I'm working with them, they make all these plans. I'm like, these are okay. If making up a bunch of numbers makes you feel better, it's one thing if you have a history of some sort of track record that works. But when you're in a place, an area, or a segment where you don't know and you're just taking your best guess, like just be honest. And like you said, we don't know. Like we'll aim for this, but keep it simple. And people spend so much time making plans, worrying about plans. Why it isn't on the plan? Because they hate uncertainty. It's
yeah.
like that lack of. It's almost like an insecurity about being able to deal with things. I know as a human level, we probably don't like lack
I
of.
think it's just people, once they put it on a spreadsheet, they feel the uncertainty goes away by just
Yeah,
putting it on a spreadsheet. And the uncertainty
yeah.
is
It's like
exactly
it
the
doesn't mean
same.
anything for the future.
And this is when like startup founders also pitch to me basically, it's like, hey, you should work with us and this is our plan. It was like, okay, what do you think will happen? Like the plan? Like, really? It's like, no, I don't think so. Like, we just told it to the VC so we get the money. We don't think we can go 1 to 10 million in 3 years. So why do you put it on a spreadsheet? Like what can go wrong? Everything will go wrong, right? What's the top three things you see breaking down in daily reality all the time between people making this hyper growth or like reasonable, good, profitable growth prediction on a spreadsheet, like from 1 to 3 to 10 to 25 million in basically 3 4 years, and then reality hits? Like, what are your top three ways? They're like, number
No, I
one,
mean, a lot of it's just
hiring
impatient.
mistakes.
No,
Yeah,
impatience. It's I think it's too when things aren't in a place where you have something already working. So it could be a new company, a new project, a new thing. And everybody wants it's like we have this comfort zone of okay, if we have this new thing, company, product, book, program, if I feel like it's going to work within like 90 days, then I'm okay. Whether it could or not.
yeah,
But if it goes too far out, then like and a lot of those things take longer. Like, if I'm working on a new book, I mean, it could be, there's I had a co-author on a different book, and it's like, it probably takes, 2 years. You want to get it drafted in 3 months and out, and it's like it's probably 2 years to get a good, decent book out. Like at least the way I would do it. You can write a book faster. It doesn't mean it's going to be something people love.
yeah.
Um, and it was just like too long, too long, too long, right? And I think there's that pressure on like making money, having things, and who knows what. But I think people, the patience, it's kind of like how can you when you don't know how long something's going to take, and you're just craving that whether it's like some indication,
Yeah.
and it's hard to trust your intuition because and also everyone around you is saying like, why isn't that working? And what are you doing? And you're just like, where's that going? And he's like, I don't know, but this is the right thing to do. Well, no, come on, give me. Where's the data? Well,
The,
I
the
I
balance
don't
the
have any.
balance between stubborn and patient is
Yeah,
small, right? Like there's a small thing.
a fine line between genius and insanity, between blind stubbornness and patience.
Yeah, and I think it's just like how do you get leading indicators to understand fast if it's going to work in the end, right? People
Yeah,
ask me sometimes, hey, we're doing enterprise sales, like it takes 12 to 90, 18 months to close a 250K to a million deal, which is fine. We hired a new sales rep. How do I know before 18 months are over if the person's any good? Like, well, does the person do the right things? Do they do the right follow through? Do the right activities?
yeah.
And
Do you
and do
feel
they
are
do
you?
they do what they say and say what they do?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, do you
basic
feel some
things.
confidence and some trust in them building, or do you just feel some trust in them shrinking?
Do,
And that might be, it's again, emotion smarts might be tricky because if you're someone who's a low trust person, and a lot of CEOs and executives are, a lot of times you'll fire someone too quickly or shut down a program too quickly because you're like, I didn't get the data because I don't, you don't trust much in life.
because that's hard for people in high pressure situations to take hard decisions, right? I'm curious about your take if people delay decisions too much because they don't want to be wrong and they don't want to admit failure, where they say like, hey, 3 months in, I know this experiment, this go to market motion, this VP hire doesn't work out, but I don't want to admit failure, so I'm gonna postpone it. Versus B, they they really don't know that it's going to work, and they just like fire a person after 3 months, for example, a
Yeah.
VP says, where they should just have given the person truly 12 months and it would have been great if they just would have been more patient, because it's hard in a high pressure situation as
Yeah.
a CEO, as a VP, to balance the two.
Yeah. I think it is more often that I see, and I couldn't tell you if this is usually, it's people are impatient for some sort of like result or success.
Hmm.
And they're it's like it's almost like they're saying, all right, I want to bake a birthday cake, right? I'm going to mix ingredients, all right, I put it in the oven, and it's like 2 minutes, it's not done yet. Why isn't it done yet? Come on, like how we can get it done? And they waste all this energy trying to get the cake baked faster versus like the cake's 20 minutes. And the trick is you don't really know how long it's going to take, but let's say it's like you have to bake it until whatever, you stick the little stick in and it's dry.
And by constantly opening the oven, all the heat is going to go out, so it actually takes 60
Exactly.
minutes and they're going to go back and say like, you told me it's 20. Well, and there's like,
Yeah. Oh,
if
good.
you
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you
You have it better.
if you don't open the oven
Oh my
constantly
God.
and let
Yeah.
all the heat out and just let the oven do its bloody job at
Yeah.
200 degrees Celsius, then it takes 20 minutes. But now that you open it, it takes 3 times longer. Oh, now you blame me.
Yeah, yeah. No, whether it's like again, I was thinking about like a book or a new kind of like go to market program, which is sometimes these things take months. Even with old predictable revenue, I'd say take at least 6 months 4 to 6 months to get your pipeline to the point where you're generating enough and it's quality pipeline.
Yeah.
And you can tell usually if you're doing calls, okay, this feels real. And then could be up to, 6 to 12 to 18 months to see like revenue coming through completely because of sales cycles and things. And, these days, like, I don't think that changes. The trick is now too, it's like if you have a type of program you want to do and you're not sure if it's going to work, there's just it can take months to kind of get a new program in, see that it's even working because you have so much iteration, like you mentioned, whether sending Loom videos or
Yeah.
it could be outbound, inbound. It can just take months to kind of that diligent practice and iteration to get something working. And people don't like that because
How
they're
do you
impatient. They
deal
don't
with?
have patience.
Yeah, that's so true. Because like it's just like the importance of being able to deal with uncertainty and not make stupid
People
stuff
hate that.
purely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
How do?
also there's like a whole there's probably some psychologists could probably loop all this vicious cycle of hates uncertainty, and if the goals aren't needs goals to justify personal value, because if without kind of goals and accomplishments they don't feel like they don't feel like their self value, right? And then if they don't have that, if they don't have money, then there's like threat of their own existence. Like there's probably some vicious loop, like psychological loop that most people, right? We've all been through this. We all have our
Yeah.
versions, me's as well. You could probably outline and how that uncertainty within business. I mean, if we step back a bit, I think most of the people in the corporate world, and I've been there, so I can speak. There's a different fear of, it's like a safe, the corporate world's generally a safe path, which is if you're not sure what to do with your life and but you just need, you need to make money because that's kind of, and
Yeah.
then you go to the corporate world, and at least it used to be a safe way to make money because you're not sure how you would make money doing whatever you were meant to do because you didn't even know what that is because no one ever like talked to you about that. So it's kind of, the corporate, you already have people who are generally going to be avoiding kind of things like intuition and like
Hmm.
being truly rebellious. And even entrepreneurship, I'm sorry, these days entrepreneurship is a very safe path for the most part. Talk about like if you want to feel like a safe path to making a lot of money, it's probably people who go entrepreneurship because it's such a well-worn path. It's not like the old. It used to be more like the rebels. No,
Yeah. Like
no, not no, no.
the V in venture capital is gone in SaaS because
Yeah, exactly.
it's not that much of a venture to build
It's
software and
it's the new
to send
version of
emails.
corporate, corporate lawyers. And, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, like, be a doctor, be an accountant, be a lawyer type of thing. And then today it's like, okay, be a banker, be a VC, be in the corporate world, be in tech. Like it's the
Be a
safe.
SaaS founder, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like
So,
it's pretty established unit economics.
yeah. And people, so I don't know, anyway, people are just kind of interesting and weird, and you never really know.
What I find interesting in like the weird human way that people are so different is based on experience, right? So this caveat on the marshmallow test where you give like 4 to 8 year olds like a marshmallow and you go out of the
Yeah.
room and you tell them I'm gonna come back in 10 minutes, and if the marshmallow is still here, I give you a second one. So you double returns if you're just patient for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then somebody told me
What?
this anecdotally, and so like the interesting thing is that people ate the marshmallow from like more unstable backgrounds where people told them things. If you wait for 10 minutes, you're
Yeah.
gonna get a reward. But then like dad never came home, or like they just get beaten up, or somebody stole it. And it's like I learned early in life, before 4 years old, that if somebody tells me like there's delayed gratification and it pays off, but it didn't, I'm just gonna eat the marshmallow all day.
Oh,
So I'm
I
not
don't
gonna
know
have
when. Yeah,
patience by
because who
experience.
knows? Yeah, who knows? The future is so uncertain. Like, I better have it now.
And I see
Yeah.
that happening in go to market to a certain extent, that CEO goes to VP, says like, hey, like it's totally fine, take your time, build your hypothesis, it's your playbook, run it, like you're here for the long term, like you got some stock options, it's all fine. And it's like, yeah, but I talked to the previous VP sales, and that guy was fired after 3 months, and I had the same memo and the same prep speech. So I better come up with something hacky in 3 months' time, even if the CEO tells me they've got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think
the role
in
of
that
trust is so critical.
I think in that case, you could tell like if what they're something is coming if someone's coming up with some stuff that seems like it's going in the right direction at least, and I think generally, directionally is the right thing. But going the marshmallow test, I think you had is a great example where came out, and the West is always like, oh, okay, shows you that patience and deprivation is the way to go, which it can for some people. But
Yeah.
like you said, when they looked at it from the other side, which is if you came up from an wouldn't say unstable, from a background where you don't have you know enough, there may not be enough resources, right? There's not plenty of food and what like. if you find something there, yeah, you probably should just grab it or eat it now because you don't really know. Maybe they say that you can't trust the future the same way.
Yeah.
And I think I can see that now because um, that can be a really smart strategy sometimes. Because if you don't know that the world's changing so much, even today, like maybe, again, do you think you should deprive yourself for 40 years saving for retirement? Some people should, but that's not the right. That's actually a really bad strategy for a lot of other people. It comes back to like who's the right person here.
Yeah, it depends on your personal experiences. If you, for example, see your
There's a lot of
parents
people who
living
lost all
like
their
very
retirement
happily ever
money.
after from six, yeah, yeah, exactly, and they've been in the Great Depression or they've been to a world war, they died early or so, and that you see it depends on your circumstances, right? Like when with
Yeah,
COVID, for
we don't.
example, like
You know,
I met some people that said like, okay, look, I know zero people. Everybody got COVID, obviously, but they partied the next day and everybody's been fine. So COVID is this minor flu. And I met other people like, hey, I lost three relatives due to COVID. COVID is this all-encompassing deadly virus. And it was the same virus, obviously, but it was a very different environment. How people perceived it due to personal experience.
yeah,
From your personal
that's
experience, spanning three
everybody's
decades
different.
in, yeah, very much from your personal experience in like 3 decades of go to market from the early times of Salesforce to today, what's one thing that you strongly believe in for the future of go to market that very few people agree with you?
Well, I mean, my big thing, and I have. So I mentioned there's a first book coming out. It's not a go-to-market book. It's called Income Operating System. Um, but I think the principle's gonna be the same. In that book, it's just saying if you want to make more money, it's just three ways: there's employment, freelancing, and then investing. And by the way, like I don't save for retirement. I'm so busy investing in like businesses and the family. Everybody's different, but that's not the great strategy for lots of people. But in this book, really like the core thing that's driving it is I'm just thinking like if people learn how to have more conversations, really live conversations, and you could be chat, but like just go talk to people. Go talk, if you're not sure what to do, go talk to someone. You
Yeah,
want to get, promoted, go talk to someone. You want to kind of get clients, you want to learn, you want to get investments partners, or it's not selling, it could be talking to people to get clarity, to meet people, to network, to da 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 da. And go to market, I think that's really the same thing. Although in this
yeah,
case, to me, it's like what I don't see companies doing are just having regular conversations with their best customers and asking for things like referrals, which could also be your testimonials and um, specifically referrals to other possible prospects. And there's different reasons,
there
but I
can be
think just like
there can be an
more
outcome, but I
conversations.
mean, just having these human conversations and learning about them, right? Like going on site and work for the
Yeah,
at your customer
yeah,
and people telling you like, hey, this is by the way why we went for you and not your biggest competitor who's like way more recognized in the market, and this is the unique reason why we signed up. It's like, ah, huh, interesting,
yeah.
never learned
And
that before the second beer.
man, there can be lots of ways to have conversations. I mean, people in sales are already trying to have more sales conversations, but I think in that case, I would say like just have more conversations with people, whether it could be partners, customers. It doesn't have to have more sales conversations. You might also just start by having more non-sales conversations. Again, that's if you said there's one thing, it would be just like talking to people. Could be even one-on-one, Zoom calls, in person, because no matter what, that's going to help. Like to me with
Have
AI,
genuine human conversations and be open to learn and
yeah,
like
I mean with
increase information flow from a technical perspective, but just understand better
yeah,
what you're
and
going
also
through.
like whatever happens with AI, like if you are able to build your relationships with other people, whether it's one to one or at scale with like books or content, whether you're a business or person, like relationships will help you no matter what.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
it's
Like
also
that's
fun.
something that is very predictable and certain. So
Love that point. So to sum it up, we could probably talk for hours more. Like we had lunch like a few weeks ago, right? So appreciate that human in-person conversation as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
If we could sum it up in a way, like how you put it, there's like three layers. There's external tensions in the world which we cannot really influence, like what the world is doing and the economy and politics and so on.
yep,
But
social
there's like
media.
certain outward pressure to be faster, to be AI, to social media. There's internal friction which you can control within the team, how you manage the team, how you set incentives and so on, how you create certainty or like how you handle conflicts where I disagree. And there's also like very operational execution gaps where people they love the idea, they forget the job within all the noise. And yeah, really looking forward
Right.
to have that all come together in your new book, like working title Ghost Revenue, right? It's not
Yeah.
as predictable anymore. It's a bit of hunting ghosts, but let's see if we
Yeah.
can
Ghost
uncover
revenue,
some of those.
unpredictable revenue. Yeah, the ghost revenue idea is it's like again, it's like people are all chasing ghosts. It's not. We'll see. We're just playing with. It's probably be a year or two away from it being,
Yeah,
turned into like a book. But we'll get there at some point.
very cool stuff. Thanks so much for being on the show. Any last thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Uh, no, appreciate it. Just keep talk, go out and talk, get to talk to people.
We'll do so. Thanks so much.